Welcome to the Business of Government Hour TV, a video companion to our flagship radio program. I'm Michael Keegan, your host. Each week, government executives and thought leaders join me for an informative, insightful, and in-depth conversation on the intersection of government, technology, and leadership. What are the strategic priorities for the U.S. General Services Administration's Technology Transformation Services? And how does TTS foster innovation within and among federal agencies? We'll explore these questions and so much more with our very special guest, Anil Cheriyan, Director of GSA's Technology Transformation Services and Deputy Commissioner of its Federal Acquisition Service. Also joining my conversation from IBM is Kunal Suryavanshi. Take a look and take a listen. Download the entire interview at Podcast One, iTunes, and at businessofgovernment.org. So, would you briefly, Anil, discuss for us the mission and continued evolution of the U.S. General Services Administration's Technology Transformation Services? And more importantly, how does TTS support the overall mission of the agency?
Sure. So TTS, at the heart of it, Technology Transformation Services, the mission is really about making the lives of our public and public servants better by leveraging technology. So that's the fundamental reason for being for TTS. And if you look at the GSA core objectives and strategic objectives, GSA is focused on the way federal agencies buy, build, and use technology. So we're an integral part of GSA in that regard. Now, TTS itself is really a conglomeration of multiple business units. There is a group called 18F that was formed back in 2014. There's a group that's called the TTS Solutions Group that's been there. It's been called multiple different names in the past. OPP, Offset, et cetera, the Presidential Innovation Fellows, and then the COE group. So it's really a group of business units that have been formed at different times. And our whole journey right now is how do you bring them together and drive towards the mission.
Given your roles and responsibilities in the portfolio, the breadth and depth of your portfolio, what would you say your three top management challenges have been? How have you sought to address those challenges?
So as I mentioned before, there are really there are four groups that are part of TTS. And those groups were really historically doing transformation work or technology work in different ways. And the way one of the biggest challenges is really bringing that together. My belief is that if you connect all those dots, then you can do a lot more. Then you can be much more effective with the agencies. For example, if you're doing a major transformation with an agency and you're doing some user-centered design work with the agency, really connecting all of those in an integrated fashion so that you can be more knowledgeable, you can be more helpful, you can really meet what the agencies need. So there's a real connecting the dots of those groups. And I can get into it a little bit later, but we've really formed and restructured to make that integration work. The second piece is about talent. We are all, as you can imagine, looking for the right skills, right talent, as transformation from a technology standpoint is rapidly changing. You have several new technologies out there, AI being one that's significantly changing as we speak. Cloud used to be that, but now I think the cloud skills are still things that we're looking for. So finding the right talent to really figure out how to make that work. We are, I think if you look at our approaches in terms of finding the talent, we used term employees. We find significant resources from the large industry providers of that talent. They want to come and work for us. They want to spend 2 years with us, really do something special for federal government. do something with a sense of purpose. We attract those types of individuals, which has really been helpful. But getting that constant flow of talent is something that we are driving towards. And then the last piece is something that I kind of hop on a lot. Is it's all about outcomes. When we talk about change, I'd like the dialogue to be more about what have you done for the citizen, right? What have you done at the end game? So if we say, hey, we moved all these applications to the cloud, it's interesting, but the real question is, how does the citizen feel anything different? So really talking about outcomes is a challenge that in the sense that it's a mind shift that we're trying to make from a culture standpoint within not only within TTS, but also with all the agencies that we work with.
So you mentioned, Earl, in our previous segment that your area, TTS, Technology Transformation Services, applies modern methodologies and technologies to change the way government agencies do their business and meet their missions. So I'd like to get a sense of your strategic vision for TTS and your key priorities.
Sure. So just take our mission, which is, when you think about it, very large. We're talking about transforming the way in which leveraging technology to make people's lives better and public servants better. I mean, you're just at the heart of that. That's a big charter. We work with several agencies, over 20, 30. I can get you the exact number, but there's several number of agencies, and our goal and our strategic goal here is really threefold. One is it's all about building momentum, and we should be talking about this transformation, but it should get to a point where you're turning the flywheel and it's moving, and it continues to move at a pace that's sustainable. The second piece is all about sustainability, and transformation shouldn't be a once and done thing. It's all about building the right capabilities that can be reused and reapplied and so on. So we can get into some of the, what does that really mean? We're really focusing on 6 areas to drive transformation, and those are the competencies that we want to build, and we want to make those sustainable so it can be reused. And then the third piece is all about delivering with what I call delivering with excellence, but focused on outcomes. So really not only dealing with, hey, I did this migration of 35 data centers down to 2, but what are the real outcomes? Have you reduced cycle time? Have you improved the citizen's experience? Have you made life better for the public servant? Those are the kinds of things that we are not, I can't say that we're there yet, but that's something that we're striving towards, is really in terms of measuring impact. So those are really the 3 strategic priorities. But underpinning that is making sure that the teams are driving towards that and having the right leadership and so on to make that happen.
So as you were shaping your vision for TTS, what were some of the key internal and external drivers and trends, if you will, especially technology trends, that shaped and informed the way you were going to market, if you will?
Coming into the job back in January of 2019, I must have spent a good 3 months on just a listen and learn tour. It was just about what do we do, what does our team do, what's the impression of our team from key stakeholders, whether it's the White House, OMB, Office of CIO, the agencies that we work with, and also what are some of the real issues that agencies are facing. And so having done that for about 90 days, that kind of led to the strategy that really said, hey, we've got a pretty good name, we've got a pretty good brand, but let's go figure out how we can play above our weight, and let's build the momentum, drive the sustainability. The 6 areas that we picked on were really 6 that, frankly, if you go into the private industry and you say, I want to do a digital transformation, you'll kind of say, here are the six. It's what I did in my past in the financial services industry, in the bank that I worked in. So it's not anything new. I think it's very similar, and I think there's been no real questions or arguments from the agencies that we worked with. In fact, one of the core lighthouse agencies, USDA, was one where we started building this whole concept of building centers of excellence and deriving transformation using those centers of excellence. Very familiar to you if you're in the consulting business. You go to market by industry and you go to market with your solution area. So this is very much of a very similar kind of concept where we go to market by the industries that we're in and we leverage our core solution areas.
So, Anil, what prompted your reorganizing of the Technology Transformation Service? And how do you think this restructuring makes the organization more client-focused as well as internally collaborative?
Sure. And you've kind of hit on the two real reasons why we did this. Think of the two pillars. And when we reorganize, we form these two pillars. One is getting all of our client-facing groups or agency-facing groups, 18F, the COEs, and the Presidential Innovation Fellows, and putting them under one umbrella. I didn't want to blow them up, as it were. I feel the brand and the quality of the work that was being done by each of those groups was well recognized by several of our agency clients. But the need was to put them together. And really, I put in a leader who, frankly, Harry Lee, who's someone who worked with me in Coopers and Lybrand way back. I've known him for many years. He's run several consulting practices. He really is leading that effort to bring those together. And the reason for that is to show one face to our agency clients. So if you're doing for example, we're doing this massive transformation at USDA. However, we've got several 18F projects doing work within the forestry services within USDA. Those two teams, when they started realizing, hey, this is what we do, the combination of that became much more powerful because we were speaking the same language to the agencies, and the agencies felt that. So that's one, is really to build that pillar of go-to-market, common client practices. And then there's the solutions group is really a conglomeration of all of those different platforms, cloud, login. And so think of them as being accelerators or enablers, as well as their groups there that have a voice of the end customer. USA.gov, we have a contact center that's open to get calls from anyone in the public. And so we have a conglomeration there of solutions, platforms, and a voice of the client that really enables us to deliver on the first two. So if you come up with, so for example, we're building AI capabilities. The solutions group is building the AI competency, working with industry, working with everyone that's out there. We're never going to be the AI provider. We're going to be working with all the other providers to make that happen. But the go-to-market teams then deliver that to the client. So that's kind of the fundamental two pillars. And the good thing about bringing all those solutions together is then when we make investments, we can be saying, hey, why are we investing here? We can change that investment around, put more money in this, because kind of be more proactive to what's really needed from an industry perspective.
So Technology Transformation Services, in the name of your portfolio's transformation, and part of that is innovation. And where I'd like to go is, how are you at TTS fostering innovation within federal agencies? And how does 10X or other programs like 10X factor into your whole approach?
Sure. So at the heart of what we do, it's all about innovation. That's the reason for our existence. It's the way in which we want to operate. And I'd say innovation is not part of any subgroup of TTS. It's what everyone does. So whether you're in an 18F team or a COE team or a Presidential Innovation Fellow, one of the solutions members, innovation is really all about what we do. And we bring, especially since we're bringing a lot of the talent from industry on a term basis, I'd say well over 70% of our teams are term. We have the ability to kind of bring that innovation, and that's really the focus that we have. So whether it's in terms of agile development and bringing in the skills transfer of that, or figuring out ways in which you can do agile BPAs, agile implementations, and so on. But we do have a group called 10X, as you mentioned, and 10X is really an interesting group. It's a group that falls under the solutions pillar, and every few months we go out to all the agencies and say, bring us your hottest issues, the questions that you have that you would like solved. And the 10X team then goes through 3 phases of evaluating that problem. The first phase is, hey, is this something that we can solve? Is this something that we feel that we can tackle? And they put teams on it, and they start working through and try to solve. So think of it as being a funnel. So the last request that we made, we had about 300 individuals, 300 questions that were coming from all parts of government. And so we winnow those down to a few that we start doing a quick evaluation. Something we want to do, something we don't want to do, and so on. And then for those that we pick through the funnel, and we say, hey, these are things that we want to work on, we then spend a short period of time prototyping, trying to solve the problem. And it's really the 10X team that does that. Agency leaders who pose the question come in as subject matter experts and say, yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for or not, or they can have the dialogue. But the 10X team works, as well as, they bring industry folks to kind of make that happen. And then the last piece is, once everyone's feels that it can be reused, then it becomes something that we can take. And in fact, just a few days ago, the 10X team presented to the TMF fund board to say, hey, this is our approach, this is what we do. Can we figure out ways in which we can connect? Because what we want to do is, typically when we take these problems, it's really cross-government, cross-agency types of issues. So let's figure out a way in which we can propagate the solution. You're going to build it with one agency, but then really figure out how we can span it across. So great conversations, lots of great ideas that come out of 10X, real good, innovative approaches. By no means is TTS the only group that drives this type of innovation. I'm sure there are lots of agencies that do it, but this is something that I believe lots of great ideas. We are now down to about 2 or 3. 10X has been going through this for the last few years. We have some really good examples of that I can't get into right now because they're in the last stages of it, but some really good examples of things that can be productized and then can be used across multiple agencies.
You have to come back on and talk to us about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
I want to ask you a little bit about this program called the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, also known as FedRAMP. Can you outline your vision for continuous improvement of this program? It's a very important program.
Sure. So I had the pleasure of testifying in front of Congress about this program. So it's been, as you can imagine, the FedRAMP is really a risk management program that provides a common way for agencies to understand whether a cloud service provider meets certain risk criteria. So you have, you can be FedRAMP moderate, FedRAMP low, FedRAMP moderate, FedRAMP high, et cetera, et cetera. So there's different levels of quality of FedRAMP. When it was, OMB actually sent out a circular that said, all agencies need to have their cloud services providers, FedRAMP ATO'd. So when it was first formed, the pace at which those FedRAMP authorizations were taking place was very slow, to be blunt, and very manual. and is very paper intensive, and cloud service providers had to go through a very manual process to get their software FedRAMP authorized. The team has done a phenomenal job over the last few years and continues to do so of really streamlining the process. Let me give you an example. So if you're a SaaS provider that already sits on an infrastructure as a service that is being FedRAMP ATO'd, you inherit all those FedRAMP authorizations for the infrastructure that's already being authorized. So the speed at which SaaS providers now get FedRAMP authorized is way, way quicker. So there's a lot of improvements being made, and we're not sitting right there. We want to try and improve it even further. We've got about 170 cloud service providers authorized. We've got 50 in the pipeline right now. The reusability, which is a core piece of this, so that if one agency gets it authorized, all the other agencies need to be able to reuse that authorization. Reuse is, those 170 have been used about 1,400 times across the federal government. So it's really beginning to pick up speed, as it were. But we're not resting on our laurels. We've got activities now to automate the controls. So cloud service providers are not manually providing us the security pieces. We are actually getting that information in an automated form using something called OSCAL, which is a language for security controls. So those automations will certainly help. We're doing more agency training. We're doing some, I actually took the team. We went to California and met with a bunch of startups and said, about 80 startups were there to say, hey, this is not the evil government. We're here to help you. And here's some, and we had some 4 or 5 software startups on the panel that said, hey, this is how we went through FedRAMP. So there's a lot of education and getting the word out that's been going on. As well as now we worked with ACT-IAC, and we have a FedRAMP, cloud service ATO working group that's actually looking at this whole process and giving suggestions, which is, so we're open for changes, we're making the changes, and we're seeing the rate and pace of these authorizations greatly improve.
Talking of risk, identity management is a core need for federal agencies. Why is identity management so difficult across government? And do you have some ideas on how it can be addressed?
Yeah, so this is a significant effort that we need to really address. We feel that we are best suited to make that happen. In fact, we received as part of our appropriations a fund to drive identity management from Congress. So we've got a team that's focused on that. And we're working very closely with a number of agencies. Now, why is it so difficult? It's think of there as being 2 or 3 layers to it. One is just simple authentication. Every agency over time has built their own authentication methods. And so you have a different number or way in which you can join an SSA site or an IRS site. We've got something called login.gov, which can be the core authentication layer. However, to make that change for all those agencies, it's not the easiest thing to suddenly say we're going to change our identity authentication tool. And so that's one. The second layer is all about proofing, to say, if you say that this is your name and number and password, what is the proof? What are the proofing mechanisms? And different groups have different proofing mechanisms. So we have a team now that's working on this issue and working very closely with several players across federal government. And we're, frankly, looking for a plan and a strategy that clearly defines how we should go about it, how we should do the migration, et cetera, et cetera. And frankly, how do we leverage industry to make it happen? There are lots of identity and proofing tools out there, and we should be leveraging those. We should be working with those.
Be sure to join me next time on the Business of Government Hour TV for another informative, insightful, and in-depth conversation on the intersection of government, technology, and leadership. Until then, it's businessofgovernment.org.